This is Bang Goes the Theory. Engineer Jem is going to take everyday objects and then use them to build weird and wonderful machines.
In the wrong hands, that could be described as a microwave death ray.
Biologist and biochemist Liz is on the hunt for the best new science research.
Completely freaky.
And I'm going to try and wrap my brain around science's biggest questions and bring you the answers. This is the Knowledge Centre on Ellen's boat. All the data about the weather we need is coming through on this computer here. That's Bang Goes the Theory, putting science to the test.
Bang Goes the Theory, the show that likes to take science apart, give it a bit of a poke and put it all back together again.
Tonight, Jem takes his life in his hands by building himself his very own jet pack.
Stop!
And I take my life in my hands by looking for aliens in a dress.
That all sounds very frightening to me. Before all that, though, I've got a quick question for you both. Which of these two things do you think has more of an effect on global warming, cows or cars?
It's got to be cars.
No, actually, it is cows. Yeah, amazingly, farmed animals have more of a greenhouse effect than all the cars and trucks on the planet put together. Now, how much methane do you think a cow will produce in a day?
No idea.
Look up there.
OK.
That's 500 litres of methane per cow every single day. And remember, methane is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide.
Well, shouldn't we just break it down then?
Yeah.
Oh!
Whoa. Pretty cool, eh?
Hey, that was creepy. I want to see that again.
By burning it, we've converted the methane into carbon dioxide and water. And as Liz said, carbon dioxide is a whole load less damaging to the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's still not ideal though, is it? Here's the question though. If cows produce so much methane, what can we do about it?
There are more than 1 billion cows in the world pumping out methane.
Now, you might think that it's the back end of cows where the main problem lies, but you'd be wrong. It's the front end that's actually the dangerous bit.
Using this gizmo, researchers in Ireland have found that Daisy is burping out 500 litres of methane every single day.
95% of the methane that's produced by cows comes out of their mouth.
The Farm Research Centre near Cork are trying to find ways of reducing that amount.
They're even experimenting with different diets. Now, so far, researchers are thinking they can reduce cow emissions by 40%, which isn't bad.
But is it enough to save our planet?
Another solution could be to reduce our reliance on cows. Now, most of us do like a nice bit of roast, but what if there was an alternative? What would you be prepared to eat?
You may now be wanting to hide behind the sofa, but insects and other creepy crawlies are the most abundant and efficient source of protein out there. 80% of the world's population regularly eat insects as a normal part of their diet. So could bugs have a place on our dinner plates? I'm going to test out bug recipes on the rest of the team.
Right then, I've got a whole bag of goodies here so I can cook up some grub, pardon the pun, for the boys. Now, first up, I've got some mealworm or beetle larvae because our main meal is going to be chili con larvae. Some locusts and some crickets.
But first, flash fried scorpions.
Now, all you need is a very hot pan, a little bit of oil, some chili and garlic, and then I'm going to flash fry the scorpions for about 20 seconds. Now, if you're thinking, while looking at this, that you would absolutely never eat insects, I've got a little surprise for you. You already do.
Food manufacturers are legally allowed to leave 2 maggots in every 100 grams of tomato sauce, 60 aphids in a portion of frozen broccoli, and up to 340 bits of insect in a mug of hot chocolate.
Believe it or not, we can all eat about 1 kilo of insects every year without even knowing it. These look yummy. The boys are going to love these.
I'm also making cricket stir-fry and chili con larvae. The great thing about insects and the like is that the amount of energy and food that goes into producing them is less than 1/10 of that required for beef.
Never thought I'd be cooking up chili con larvae, but this is the first time for everything.
And I made a nice dip I called tarmasa locust. We also have toasted giant ants and cricket and scorpion blinis.
Well, there you have it. A veritable insect feast. Yummy! Time to make my first converts. The boys are having lunch in the canteen, but I don't think a pitta is very nutritious. This is much more like it. Boys, boys, boys. How's it going?
Oh, there's a scorpion. Oh, fantastic.
I don't know why Dallas is being so squeamish. 80% of the world's population eat insects like these as a regular part of their diet.
No nibbling.
No, nibbling the sting off.
Dallas, go on, hun.
This one? Yeah, come on.
How recently did these stop wriggling?
Literally about 2 hours ago.
They do taste
Full
fresh.
of protein. And what they're
Despite
saying
the
is-
benefits to our planet, it looked like I'd never persuade Dallas.
Dallas, I want to see you munching on something. I worked really hard on
Well,
stuff
these
for this.
things,
Looks beautiful.
these
I
things,
can't even touch it.
Taste the nut, look. It tastes like bacon. It tastes like bacon.
They're not so good, those ones.
I love it.
I'm going to have one of these fellas.
blimey.
No, it's disgusting.
They're okay.
Yeah.
Here's my question.
Go.
I like to eat prawns.
Yes.
And essentially, this is a prawn.
That's exactly what it's
Why
like.
am I freaking out eating this?
It's mind over matter, isn't it? We're
I
just
think
not
you're a
used
girl.
to it. Such a woman.
Although insects produce methane too, the amount they produce per kilo of protein is a fraction of the amount pumped out by Daisy the cow.
Check out Dallas. Oh, no. You have to now. It's all on your fork. Oh,
Hey,
man.
nicely done.
Well, there you have it. A rip-roaring success with the boys here in the canteen. And think about it. This could be the food of the future. Do you know what? I gotta say, I can't believe you ended up eating a whole bunch of bugs on one fork.
They were foul.
you know-
Horrible. Nasty.
They were, but I kept a few for you as a treat, though.
I'd love to, but we need to crack
You
on.
never even tasted this one
No,
before.
no. Right then. Coming up, it's an anniversary. It's the Harrier Jump Jet.
Yes, indeed. This incredible plane has been keeping the RAF up in the air for the past 40 years.
Yeah, and the unique thing about the Harrier Jump Jet, of course, it doesn't need a big, long runway like every other plane. It can take off vertically, which is genius.
And some of that genius actually occurred right here in these buildings.
That's right.
It's here where the very first prototype of the Harrier was actually tested.
Amazing. I love that.
I thought so, and inspired, I've decided to get in on the vertical takeoff scene myself. Ordinarily, it costs tens of millions of pounds to build a Harrier. I'm going to see if I can send myself skyward for less than 200 quid. My challenge is to produce a strap-on jetpack that can do what the Harrier does. Blast its pilot, me, straight up into the air. This prototype Harrier here at the Science Museum shows what's going on. Vast quantities of air are sucked in through these ducts at the front. Then air and hot exhaust gases are blasted out through these nozzles here. They can be swiveled backwards to give forwards thrust, or pointed straight down to give pure vertical lift. A jet engine is out of the question on my budget, so I'm replacing hot air with cold water from a fire engine and getting my thrust from a few bent pipes. My jetpack backpack design has got 4 distinct bends in it. 2 here and another 2 here. Now these bends are what I believe will give me my lift. Because if you imagine what a bend does, it forces water to change direction. So here, it's forcing the water to go down, so by Newton's laws, the water must be forcing the bend to go up. Now I notice this every time I try and fill the kettle in the workshop. This bend here forces the water to go down, and it tends to want to force the pipe to go up. Watch this. Oh! Anyway, I think that proves the point. I reckon I'll need to be able to lift 100 kilos with my jetpack, and to achieve that the water pressure in the pipes will have to be 5 times atmospheric pressure. That's 72 psi or 5 bar in modern money. Sounds simple, but it could kill me if things go wrong. And they could. When the Harrier was first tested, it nearly killed its pilot, Bill Bedford. And now, it's the turn of my first prototype. The Stansfield Waterjet Mark 1. There's a whole host of stuff that could go wrong that I probably don't know about. But the main worries are being struck directly by the jets and being driven straight into the ground.
That'd be bad.
That'd be really bad.
It's got a bit of water now.
You do feel a tiny bit of weight coming off you. Unlike the Harrier, which balanced on 4 jets, the Stansfield has only 2, which slightly complicates things on the control front. Whoa! Stop! Oh! Yeah.
Feel alright?
Yeah. Oh. No, that did actually hurt a little bit. Just like with the Harrier, vertical takeoff is more challenging than it looks.
Jem, that looked like it really hurt.
Only in the way that landing on your head with 25 kilos of steel on your back often does.
You're absolutely bonkers. Tell me you're not doing that again, seriously.
I've got to. It is so close to flying.
Did it fly? I mean, I sort of hop a little bit, but can it actually fly?
I mean, it will kind of hover for a little bit, but just there's no control. You're all over the place.
Will it ever fly, or is it a dead duck?
No, Mark 1 will never fly, but Mark 2, you guys wait and see.
You're such a tease. All right, then, it's time to meet the 4th member of our team, who is, of course, Dr. Yan, travelling the length and breadth of the country to bring science to a high street near you.
The challenge is to see if anyone can blow more air into this bin liner than I can. So that's about that much air, yeah? Oh, that's quite a lot more. So what's your name, sorry?
Forget.
So far, Forquette has done the best. You blew up to about that much, didn't you?
Yeah.
Right, now it's my go, yeah? Right, you hold that. But what I'm going to do, I'm not going to put my mouth against the bag like Forquette did. I want to not just put the air from my lungs into the bag, but also the surrounding air as well. So I'm going to do it like this. So I reckon that's a bit more, yeah? The reason this works is because air, like water, is a fluid. And when I blow a stream of air out of my mouth, it drags all the surrounding air molecules with that stream and into the bag. Just like if you were to put your hand in some water and drag it, you would disturb the water all around your hand as well. You want to go? Yeah. So you hold that and do the same thing. Just blow steadily there, okay? There we go. You beat all your friends.
And then listen, I have got a confession to make.
What's that?
I am obsessed by space.
Tell me something I
As
don't
you know,
know.
because I do bang on about it quite a lot,
He
so I'm
does.
sorry about that. Anyway, when I got a chance to meet one of the world's leading astronomers, I leapt at the opportunity. And for me, there was only one question to ask. I've come all the way to California to ask just one question. Now, you may think that's quite a long way to come just to ask one question, but I have to say that this is a biggie. In fact, on the bigness scale of questions, this is probably a 10. No, actually, it's more like an 11. What do you think?
You look good.
Yeah? Happy?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do it. Hi, Deborah. Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Professor Deborah Fisher of San Francisco State University is one of the world's foremost planet hunters, Having discovered 186 planets, she definitely knows what she's talking about. Okay, so I've got one question.
Okay.
It's the big question.
Okay.
Are you ready for it?
I hope so.
Okay. Are we alone?
No, of course not. There are so many planets, so many possibilities for life. I think it's hard to imagine that we're it, that there's not some kind of life somewhere else.
So there you go, an exclusive on Bang Goes the Theory. According to one of the most respected scientists in the field, we are not alone. Probably. If she's right, when you look up into the sky, you might be looking at stars that also have planets, which might also have life. But if Deborah's hunch is right and ET is up there, how are we going to find the right address? So far, we've only found a few hundred planets outside our solar system. Unfortunately, most of the ones we've found aren't nice rocky planets like Earth, but inhospitable gas giants like Jupiter. And that's the problem, because as far as we know, life is a bit like Goldilocks in The Tale of the Three Bears. Life, as we know it, is a bit fussy about where it can live. It needs to be not too hot, not too cold, but just the right temperature to have liquid water on the surface. It also needs to be not too big and not too small. Too big and it could turn into a gas giant, too small and the planet's atmosphere could go floating off into space. So how do you find these Goldilocks planets? Well, unfortunately, it's not very easy, but one of the ways goes a little bit like this. So if you imagine that my car headlight is in fact a star, yeah, and I'm a planet orbiting around the star, every time I pass in front of you and the star, I actually block out the light, like that. But when a scientist looks at a real star and he sees that dip in starlight, he says, yes, I've found a planet, which sounds great and simple, but the problem is that Goldilocks planets are a lot smaller than I am, you know, in the general scale of things. In fact, they're so small that if this was, in fact, the size of a star, then a Goldilocks planet is going to be something like the size of this grain of sand. And if I stick that on there, you'll probably notice absolutely nothing at all. The problem gets even worse when you consider that scientists are looking at stars that are perhaps thousands of light years away. I mean, it's a bit like trying to detect our grain of sand on the car headlight about a kilometre or so over there. I mean, can you see that? Exactly, and that's what the planet hunters are up against. Most people would give up when they realise the enormity of what they're trying to do, but not the Brits and their Super WASP telescope. It successfully used this so-called transit method to detect 10 Jupiter-sized planets. But the boys who put men on the moon have gone one better. Well, slightly more than one. NASA have sweated for years to produce a telescope so powerful that it can look at 100,000 stars at a time and detect the telltale signs of a Goldilocks-sized planet orbiting any one of them. It's called the Kepler telescope, and I'm off to meet the man behind it. Hi, you Bill?
Yes.
Hi, Bill, I'm Dallas. Don't touch anything, touch nothing. Can you just explain a bit what Kepler is and what its mission is?
Okay. Well, basically, it's a space mission.
Right.
Essentially a telescope that measures the brightness of stars. And we're going to look at these stars and find planets like Earth. This is it right here.
Liking the gold, that works for me, definitely.
What you can see here is a telescope. Inside the telescope is all the CCD detectors.
Right.
So this is like sort of a camcorder.
Okay.
Big lens with detectors.
Yeah.
And we get pictures.
So when does it start actually looking for planets?
It has already started. It started in the first week of May.
Oh, right, so-
and the system is running right now, and I'll show you one of our first images.
Oh, so this is
Yes.
sort of brand new, hot off the press,
It's hot off the
exclusive.
press.
Look at
That's
this.
exactly right.
So each one of these sort of dots is a star.
Each of these, what look like a grain of sand, is a star. We're looking at millions of stars here, millions of planets that are here.
It's
All we have to do is find them. It'd be a tremendous surprise to everybody if we didn't find hundreds of Earths.
But there's one frustrating thing. The Kepler telescope may start picking up the telltale dimming of distant stars within a few months, but those initial flickers could have many causes. We'll only know if it's significant when we see the dimming forming a regular pattern indicating an orbiting planet, and that will take at least 3 years. But as soon as we do find where the neighbours might live, bang goes the theory, we'll attempt to make contact.
Do you know what? I'm absolutely loving the fact that NASA are actually out there looking for ET.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is that life is really, really resilient. I mean, us humans are really kind of wussy. We can only handle body temperature changes of about 4 degrees Celsius. But simple organisms like bacteria can adapt to much, much tougher conditions. So, Jem, I would like you to go and meet the extremophiles.
These little fellas can handle extremes of heat and cold and apparently still live to tell the tale.
If they could talk, Jem, which
Okay,
they can't.
okay.
Anyway, it does make finding life in far-flung planets that little bit more realistic. It basically means that the Goldilocks planets in Dallas's film don't need to be exactly like Earth. They can be a lot more inhospitable and still nurture life. Brilliant.
Yeah, and did you hear about this? Apparently scientists think that there may be life on one of Saturn's moon, you know, beneath the ice of a frozen ocean. So
Here they go. Okay, these guys are boiling, ready to test.
Would you like me to make a little slide for you boys?
Yes.
please.
Okay.
I would like to point out that absolutely no extremophiles have been harmed in the making of this programme. Now, these guys probably thoroughly enjoyed being boiled in there, and there are others that would thrive in your freezer. Extremophile literally means loving extrumes.
I hope you're right.
Are they loving
I
the
hope you're right.
extremes?
Let's have a
Well,
look.
check this out. I can bring the picture up on screen that I'm looking at down
Oh,
here.
look at that. Look.
Structurally
amazing.
intact, and trust me, I'm a biologist, these little babies are alive and kicking. Isn't that cool?
Oh, actually, talking of resilient things, have a look at this. Okay, now this beer that I have here, you'll be happy to know, the yeast that made this beer came from a beetle that was trapped in amber 45 million
Are we
years
going to have
ago.
some, are we?
Yeah.
That
no,
is a pretty
pass those
incredible
glasses.
fact. I mean, yeast can shut themselves down for a very, very long time, and all you have to do to wake them up is bung them in some water, add a couple of nutrients, and Bob's your uncle.
So, eat your heart out Jurassic Park. Beers all round.
Cheers.
Cheers, lads. It's very nice,
good.
actually.
It is okay, it is okay.
I like
now
it.
then, we left Jem's jetpack challenge in a pool of mud and in danger of serious injury. It's time to see if he manages to turn it around.
To celebrate the Harrier's 40th anniversary, I'm pushing the limits of engineering to create my own vertical takeoff jetpack for the price of an average bicycle. But the Stansfield Mark I was not a great success.
Stop!
Oh! Yeah, that actually properly hurts. What I learned from this little bump was that I'd need to sort out both the control system and the thrust. It took me and my mates a fair few hours in the workshop, but I think we may have done it. So here it is, Mark II. Now the best thing about Mark II is it only weighs half as much as Mark I. The other nifty little feature is this seat here. That means I get lifted right up the centre of gravity. We've also fitted quick release racing harness, because I discovered in test 1 that hitting the ground really hurts. But this time I'm going to be flying it over water, which is good because it makes for a softer landing, but bad because it runs that slight risk of drowning. The other advantage is that I'll have an unlimited supply of water, which is critical as the new fire truck I'm using has the capacity to double the flow rate coming through the pipes to around 1,000 gallons a minute. Here we go, the moment of truth. Does the science stack up? Is the engineering adequate? I hope so. Problem I've got is I've got limited control. I can go right and left, I can go forwards and backwards, but up and down is not up to me. It's up to these guys. The higher they wind up the pressure, hopefully the higher I go. Here we go. Okay, good. The key to blasting me upwards is not the pressure of water when it leaves the fire truck, but the pressure of the water as it whizzes round the bends in the pipes on my back. To get airborne, I need to maintain at least 5 times atmospheric pressure in my backpack. But As the jets fire up, something is not quite right. Yeah, it felt reassuringly stable. It almost felt like I'd be prepared to take that back over land if it didn't mean chewing up this guy's field. It's still just fractionally short on lift. Even with the engine giving me full whack at one end of the hose, the forces hitting my backpack at the other end only just lifted me from the water. We can't lift the pressure at the engine any higher or change the jetpack, but there is one thing we can try: sending the fireman back for a shorter length of hose. That should reduce pressure loss caused by friction as the water rushes along the pipe, and with luck, give me my magic 5 atmospheres of sustained pressure. But will it? This is the one. Let's go. Good. That's one of the best things I've ever done.
How cool was that?
Very good.
One of the stupidest things I've ever done. But now that I've cracked it, I'm going to be up there rescuing cats from trees on a regular basis.
Oh, I love you even more for that. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, you know what I fancy?
What?
One of those 45 million-year-old beers.
Yeah.